Well, well, well. Shots have been fired in my direction, along with a couple of other people. Since I was name dropped in this particular video, I will do some name dropping of my own. My good friend Franco from Frank Analysis and the Hear Me Out podcast has made his case and explained his reasoning on how tearing down statues is not trying to destroy history or eliminate history. I don't know that I completely agree with that. Sure, for some people, perhaps. Where his case came in at, okay? His case is based in the fact that, people like Christopher Columbus should not be glorified and idolized. He lumped three particular names in together: Columbus, George Washington, and King Leopold, okay? Now, Christopher Columbus, I never said in my previous video should have been glorified. From what I have learned about Christopher Columbus, yeah, he was a pretty terrible dude, okay? And the only thing that there is to be said about Christopher Columbus is about him setting out a voyage and, supposedly discovering this country, even though there's historical evidence to show there's a few people that found it before he did. Okay, they just didn't turn it into a, slave trade and a, market the way that Columbus did. By the way, something else that can be mentioned about the history of Columbus, at least my history teacher taught me this, that you don't hear a lot about, is that something tells me Columbus was a little bit mentally ill, because on his last voyage, they brought him back in chains. They brought him back in chains because the dude was going off the rails. So maybe, just maybe, he was a sick motherfucker because he was, I don't know, a sick motherfucker. Gee, but let's be honest. When you're complaining about a kids in school not necessarily learning about this, there's probably a reason they don't discuss really gory details like that with, I don't know, a bunch of first and second graders. There's just certain things that a young child's mind probably shouldn't hear at a certain age. Now, granted, you should learn about these things as you get older. Absolutely. Absolutely. But even when it comes to kids asking their parents at a young age, how are they made, basically, they have colorful ways of describing it that people find out later in life, right? So that's something that should be brought up there. So I'm certainly not going to advocate for the glorification of Columbus. Here's what we've got to remember when you want to talk about who should and should not be glorified in history. Does the good outweigh the bad? How much bad did they do, and how much good did they do? I also find it very flawed in your history lesson to compare a guy like George Washington to King Leopold. And why? Because one was a king and clearly had quite the power-hungry motives with his power, with his monarchy. He was rather power-hungry, and he didn't mind throwing that weight around, now did he? King Leopold was the definition of a king. He lived like a king. George Washington, on the other hand, was absolute that he did not want to be a king. He was so hesitant to even become the president of the United States, even though people said, "You are who we need at the helm," and he said, "I don't know, this sounds a little bit too much like a king." He was adamant. He was adamant people to not bow to him. He did not want to be referred to as some big, glorious title. That's why they had to try to figure out what to refer to him as. He didn't want to be referred to as anything like a majesty. He did not want to be a king. George Washington was a very humble man. And by no means, as far as your comparison about King Leopold carrying out a Holocaust on Africans, George Washington didn't even do anything close to that. Also, in the sense that you're going to talk about how black descendants of Washington came about, and that the most likely case is that he raped black slaves, well, you're speculating. It could have happened. Could not have happened. Let's understand this, and this is even in historical literature, and it's well documented. Yes, they were all slaves, but some didn't exactly get the old typical treatment, and some were what some might call today traitors to their own race, because they understood if they played a certain role and did certain things, they would be treated more favorably. If they knew they looked good, they could be kept at what a lot of people used to call in southern plantations the big house, right? So they would throw their, companions and whatnot under the bus so they could get that nicer, special, whatever treatment, eat the fancy food, stay at the big house. So you're jumping straight to the conclusion it was non-consensual rape. You have no more hard evidence to prove that than anyone making the case I just made to you has, because we don't really have a whole lot of documentation. What we do know about Washington is that he left in his will, when his wife died, they were all to be freed. Imagine that. Okay, so that being said, the premise we cannot honor Washington with a statue because he was a slave owner. We can't honor Thomas Jefferson because he was a slave owner. So understand this. Not only are we gonna tear down the statues, I guess we should just go eliminate two of the predominant faces on Mount Rushmore while we're at it too, right? I mean, that's literally one of America's most well-known landmarks. Go tear them down. Now I've got the question. So far, no one's answered it on Twitter. If the argument is that if someone has dirt in their past, and that we're not going to differentiate between how much dirt they have compared to other people. If you've got dirt, you've got dirt, and you cannot be honored, because by honoring you and putting a statue up in your name, we're hiding those bad things. Because there is no difference between a King Leopold who killed 15 million people and George Washington who simply owned slaves. There's no difference. Both are bad, both are tragic. Do away with them. They've got dirt on their past, and so therefore they cannot be glorified, because glorification of this person is hiding their faults. Okay, give me one person that can be glorified. That's predominant in politics or in American history, that has been an absolute saint, and we can glorify that person. Who can meet those standards? Who can fill those shoes? Why don't we just focus on some folks right here on the wall? Maybe Kennedy. Maybe we can build something to Kennedy, right? Maybe we can put a statue of JFK up, right? Oh, fuck, that's right. Oh, this guy cheated on his wife a lot. Oh, God, did he cheat on his wife? There's accusations that have been made that he would get women who were there to do him sexual favors and tell them when that you're done with me, go take care of Bobby. That'd be his brother, by the way. Don't know if it's true or not, but there's accusations made. So we can't give Kennedy any kind of credit. We can't glorify a guy who tried to keep us, from going full scale into Vietnam, who tried to work out a peace deal with Cuba, who tried to stop the Cold War, who wanted to break the CIA up into 1,000 pieces. Can't recognize any of that. Literally, the guy was shot and killed for trying to buck the system. But no, do not glorify that, because he's got dirt on his record. How about this guy, Martin Luther King Jr.? MLK can't. Cheated on his wife. And what's the immediate response going to be? Well, there's a huge difference between owning slaves and cheating on your wife. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I also agree there's a huge difference between what George Washington did in owning slaves and what King Leopold did in killing 15 million Africans, but you don't seem to be able to realize that difference. You said we can't glorify any of them, and you lumped them all into one column. So therefore, there is no difference being made from your argument between the levels of how bad these people are. So again, it goes back to my original premise. This should be decided by whether the good they did outweighed their bad. But you're eliminating that process and saying, no, there's bad there, period. Do away with it. So you've got to follow the standard for everyone on down the line. And you can't say that even though slavery is worse than potentially cheating on your wife, there are people who are going to be offended that a wife cheater or a potential, sexual nut is being honored. Because why? Their husband may have been that way. And I take offense to the fact that you are honoring this guy. I'm sure there's a lot of feminists who, if they learn the truth about what Kennedy did, if they don't know it already, would take offense to that. We can't even honor the first black president of this country. And I'm sure we all understand exactly what I'm getting at right now. If you know anything about Barack Obama, why can't we honor the first black president of this country? I don't know. Because he kicked a lot of people out of their homes. Maybe because he took us into more war. Maybe because we committed war crimes under the first black president, under his watch. Maybe it's because we killed civilians. Maybe it's because we violated the Geneva Convention. Maybe it's because under Barack Obama they were continuing to violate your Fourth Amendment right with the Patriot Act. Jesus Christ, how many fucking reasons do I need to name for why we won't even be able to honor the first black president of this country under your logic? Let that one sink in. They were going to take Teddy Roosevelt down. Teddy Roosevelt was not a racist. Under Teddy Roosevelt, the first black man was invited to sit down and eat dinner at the White House. But his statue's got to come down now too, huh? How about, let's talk about FDR. You know, the leftists love to compare their way of doing business and the way they want to govern to FDR. FDR is to the left what Ronald Reagan is to the Republicans, right? That's their old holy idol. FDR is the champion, right? Can't fucking honor him because the son of a bitch detained Asian Americans and put them into internment camps during World War II because we were attacked, Pearl Harbor, and because the Japanese were against us. So they were rounded the fuck up and put into internment camps under FDR. Likewise, the development of the atomic bomb started under FDR. Now, granted, it was Truman who actually dropped them on Japan, but it was still started by FDR. So you can't fucking honor him either. Don't put a statue up for FDR. No. So, understand, on your premise that because there's dirt in their past, they can't have a statue, no one can fucking have a statue because no one is fucking perfect and no one is a saint. And again, don't tell me there's a difference between how bad they were and how bad this guy was, because you yourself don't make that difference when you lump Washington, a guy who was very humble and didn't want to be a king, in with a fucking king who killed 15 million people, who is damn near like Adolf Hitler. If you're not willing to recognize that difference, then don't tell me I can't lump these same situations for all these other people in to say they can't be honored as well. That's why it's a fucking slippery slope, man. That's exactly why it's a fucking slippery slope. And if you don't want to see that, it's because you got blinders on. That is going to continue on down the hill, because once one group is satisfied that they have no offense with anything, someone else will be. SJW feminists fucking don't want Kennedy, the damn sexual perverted motherfucker who told girls that were coming around the White House, when you're finished going down on me, go take care of Bobby. I'm sure they're not gonna have offense to it at all. Likewise, I'm sure there's however many Asian Americans here who, when they hear what FDR did, everybody else has gotten their offenses taken down. Yeah, I don't want this guy to be idolized because he interned my fucking ancestors into camps. So again, you can't honor anyone really under your entire premise and your entire logic here. No one can be honored under this system. I'll wrap my point up on this. And by the way, like I said yesterday, you're getting the Charles Anderson Unchained. The Lone Wolf podcast is we're turning it up to a whole nother level. I said I wasn't going to pull punches anymore, and I meant it. Here's what I'll finish this on. Notice how a lot of the people defending what's going on with the ripping down of these statues are the very same people who are telling us there was a better way and we could get rid of the police, that there was a much better way than the police to handle situations. Notice these are the people who are advocating for a system where they can just break federal law and rip federal property down. They're also advocating for doing away with the police. I find that highly ironic. So once again, as I've made my stance before, I don't want anarchists and I don't want anarchy. And I don't find it very ironic that you're sitting there saying the police are a god-awful institution that should be completely eliminated because there's just no saving them, while on the other hand, you're condoning people going out and not obeying law and just ripping shit down because they want it down. No, if you want these statues to come down in your town, there's a way to go about that. You take it up with City Hall, as many other people have done, and those monuments can be removed. Let the town decide to do it. Now, if the town decides they don't want George Washington's statue to be in that town for that reason, and they come in with a crane and remove it, fine. Fucking A, fine. You didn't deface it, you didn't disrespect it, and you didn't want it in your town, and you took it the fuck down. Law and order had its day, the rule of law took its course, and you didn't want something in your town, so you took it the fuck down. But coming in and just ripping shit down and burning fucking flags, no. Other people in that town could have very well wanted to be there. Why are you more entitled to take something down when they enjoyed it? There needs to be, yeah, again, what was one of those fucking ideas in the Rolling Stone article? Community direct democracy? So you don't even want to fucking practice it at this level, yet you think you're going to institute it at a massive fucking level by replacing the police, right? You can't even get community direct democracy down to the point you can vote together on whether a fucking statue should stay up, but we're going to get rid of the police and institute community direct democracy, and you motherfuckers can't even get it instituted with the way it stands now. And I'm going to fucking believe you're going to institute it at an even bigger level? My fucking dick, you're going to institute it at a bigger level. There's no fucking way. So you've already shown you can't even take care of that. But again, if you want it gone, that's the way you need to handle it. Just saying.